Again, thank you, Maud, for introduction to me. I'm sorry, I'm ordinary guy, and my father learned to me to be work very easy, very effective, and cheap solutions. And when I was coming to university, and I am usually was starting to learn about water dam. And but my thinking was a little to another side, and I starting to, after graduate of university, to live off water dams and to deeply understand about water cycle. And after 10 years, I decided that water reservoir in my thinking is a small water cycle. And I will be maybe deeply to explain about this principle, how is very important for global climate stability is its water in system. And I am very happy to be here, and thank you, Adam, for invitation to me. And thank you for Jane, which we are work last 8 months very hard about this, understanding deeply about this water cycle, and explain for knowledges which we find in Slovakia. Okay. How is working? Is okay. Yeah. And look about this first picture about this global budget of water, and we have different impact on the ecosystem in forest, agriculture, and urban zones, and water bodies like water streams and rivers, and whole culture after industrial revolution starting to use principle water which is from raining from God is waste. And we create a lot of technology how to liquidate water for our space. And the results from this, it's about this budget, more than 30,000 cube kilometer lost of water from small water cycles on the 5 continents. And it is our contribution to sea level rise. And because we are learned on the school that it's water is renewable energy, but we forgot that it's water which are saturated to soil and vapor is like pumping system, and it's recycling many times in life, and we help for to drastically support run of water to sea level and to sea, and the result is about contribution to sea level rise from desertification process. But globally, experts don't speak about this desertification process and sea level rise. Mostly in mainstream climate experts speaking about this melting of glaciers and increasing of sea level rise. This is about main problem, and I will to explain about this principle, how it's working. Look about this very simple forest road in my country, and it's heavy rain, and with water from roads flowing around very fast, and with water from every kilometer of forest road like this quality lost in one extreme even about 400 cubic meters of rainwater, and with water flowing to streams, river, and to sea. And we have in Slovakia 40% of forest, like in Vermont and close to your region, and but in a whole system which are for transport of wooden from forest is about more than 200,000 kilometers of roads like this quality for transport, and it's not only transport of wood, but transport of water and sediment and soil from this system. Another problem is about this change of landscape. And historically, we lived in communistic era, maybe you know, and it's before communistic era was like this structures and many terraces like India, and different types and small lands. And after industrialization of agriculture, look and see. And this is about impact to not runoff only water from ecosystem, from agricultural land, but nutrients and soil. And this is about another impact from industry of agriculture. And here is about with some famous, my picture which I find in my neighbor city. Look about this culture of concrete and asphalt. All space is totally paving and sealing, and is from 1 square meter in my city, and this city is lost from 1 square meter annually 500 liters per year of rainwater, which means if this system was built 100 years before, and for channelize of rainwater out, and after 100 years, it is lost from 1 square meter 50 cubic meter of water, which means 50 meter column of water from this space. And we have in Slovakia only 4% of urbanization, like this one, and impact on the desertification process is 26%. Yeah? Next one. Look about this alternation of river and its culture. We have about 60,000 kilometers in Slovakia, and it's culture about this totally destroy of meandric system and support very like toboggan system, and it is culture which was built in different place. And historically, in communistic era was built more than 8,000 kilometers of this type of channel on the streams, but it was era after Velvet Revolution in Czechoslovakia, and we are including in European Union, but we are use European Union money for to degradation of this ecosystem. A lot of money flowing for to invest for stupid solution which are dry up of lands. Yeah, and after that, if we have, for example, a dry up of lands in urban zones and agriculture, and it's if every rainwater is lost from system, after that it's created this heat islands around space. And for example, from my city, Košice, which is 250,000 inhabitants, annually lost about 15 million cubic meter of rainwater. And we are paid for water supply company 15 million euros. This is another stupid solution which we are create, which means we are dry up of system, and after that we are paid for this. And it's from increasing of heat system, and after that is very extra dangerous situation for healthy of climate and air, because after dry up is decreasing of humidity and increased pollution on the urban zones, and this is too danger for healthy of our kids. Next one, and this problem is about this. It's like how is working this system between degradation of agro urban zones with dry up with mountains. Because problem is about this increasing of heat highlands in lowlands, starting to produce a lot of energy to atmosphere and push clouds to mountains, and in mountains starting to create heavy rain. And how to explain this system in physically? And if you are looking on US territory, I was 3 years ago in South Dakota, and it is the same like in Slovakia. A lot of damaged landscape. It's totally dry. I was in Praria in July. It was 112 degrees of Fahrenheit. It is extremely hot. And I spoke with Indian lady Candace Dushaw, which was last year here on the conference, and I say, listen, Candace, you need to cooperate with white people, because white people have money. You have a lot of dry lands. You need more water in your lands. And if you starting to communicate with white people, this money can to flow to your region to help for you and to prepare better condition for prevention to heavy storm like like superstorm, which was its November 2012, you know very well, because it's in this year was extremely hot situation. I say to Candace, listen, if on the autumn in the east coastal zones will be extremely dangerous situation about heavy storms. And you know about superstorm, which was in November 2012. A look about this principle about how is concentrate massive clouds in coastal zones, and here is no clouds. And why? Because here is extremely dry space, and from this dry space it is produce a lot of energy to atmosphere, and this make like block and to stop to flowing clouds to inside. And after that it is concentrate a lot of clouds in one space and create extremely dangerous situation for heavy storm, heavy rain, and flash floods. And if it's, for example, here will be more cool in the landscape, after that with clouds will be more wider, more horizontal flowing, and will be created good condition for raining here, and with decreasing of raining here. This is about relationship between water and climate system in atmosphere. Because how to explain this? Look about this physical approach about this relationship between energy from sun and states of water in landscape. If we have a lot of dry, like this one, and after that it's solar energy cannot to consume on the vapor water to atmosphere and produce a sensible heat. If we have a more water in ecosystem, after that it is solar energy consumed for vapor water, it creates this cool effect. This is extremely important thinking of physical approach. And it's this model on climate modeling don't speak about that. And this is an extremely dangerous problem for perspective and for destroying on sustainability of our life. Because 1 cubic meter of water, which are vapor to atmosphere, to consume about 700 kilowatt hours, which mean, for example, in this year in Slovakia was extremely hot, like in India, in Central Europe, like in India. Why? Because a lot of water dry up historically, and in the last 60 years was lost from Slovak territory about 15 billion tons of water. This water is contribution to sea level rise, and just now we had a lot of heat. And one summer day produced with decreasing of vapor water to atmosphere, produce about 100 terawatt hours of energy to atmosphere. And relationship about this energy balance, and for example with productivity of power station of electricity in whole Slovakia in one day is 0.1 terawatt hours, which means from dry lands is produced 1,000 times more energy to atmosphere like Slovak electricity power station produced in period one day. And it is this extremely dangerous situation. And if we are looking at globally, and we know that it's globally, it's annually change of forest to agricultural land. And we know that it is a lot of agricultural land to change to ceiling space, to urban zones. We know that it's more of lands is totally degraded. And it's from forest to agriculture is annually lost from 1,027,000 square kilometers. Urbanization is 57,000 kilometers annually is growing. And it's every drop of water run off to sea. And we calculate on the Slovak case, because it's from Slovakia annually is lost about 250 million cubic meters of rainwater. If Slovakia is a very rich country of desertification of the globe, I'm sure is, which means globally is from desertification process, is its contribution to sea level rise is more than 2 millimeters by 760 billion tons of water lost annually from continent to sea. And after that, we are produce annually more and more energy to atmosphere. And we are speaking about carbon, about CO2. Yeah? And this is very important to understanding about this principle because it is this physical approach. It is not about ideological approach. Because this relationship between water and energy, and we know, and physically, that in water flowing energy, and this water is thermoregulation system everywhere. Yeah, and we wrote this whole concept on the new water paradigm. I bring a couple of books here on this conference, and this is main 4 points, which is important for which we wrote in this new water paradigm. And this concept was how is working this concept about this principle about if I restore of nature and starting to harvest water to ecosystem. After that, it's more rainwater recharge to ecosystem. After that, it is vapor water to atmosphere by vegetation. As is increase of humidity and increase of soft clouds on the sky, and to with water return to system. This is very, very simple idea how to starting with water, and we need to thinking that it's raining is dependent on the vapor water to atmosphere. When I was this last year on the office of Senator Pauli from California, which is responsible for water in California, and we spoke about this principle. And this principle is very easy to understand because only from 5 cities, some biggest city of California, annually lost from sealing space, paving, asphalting, roofing, more than 1 billion cubic meter annually, which means after 50 years, is 50 billion tons of water lost from small water cycle. And this water just now on the sea. This is contribution to sea level rise. And we are still looking over how is iceberg an increase of sea level rise. We need to deeply understanding about this principle. A new water deal for blue planets, and we are starting to develop this whole system, how to is working. And it's we know that we have water crisis, we have food crisis, we have security crisis, we have culture crisis, we have biodiversity crisis and climate crisis. And it's key for this is drop of water, drop of rainwater. And please invite this drop of water to our garden and for our space, because it's very important, and a lot of people on this program can to help for that. And we calculate on the case on Slovakia, which we, on the government level in 2011, starting to implement only 1 year, and it is possible to create on the globally more than 100 million jobs. And with one. And second, from desert place, we can to make green space. And it is possible to starting to restore of not only nature, but water cycle, and starting to restore of natural potential and natural sources. And key for that it is water. And if you are looking over CO2, we know that it's a lot of misunderstanding is about mainstream ideas. And I listened last month is one lecture about decarbonization of planet Earth. It is totally stupid things, because carbon is life. Carbon we need for our life. We need carbon for vegetation, for trees, for grasses, for animals, for biodiversity, which means it's carbon, and it's like a water cycle is the same as carbon cycle in its function. but with a software for this system is water in small water cycle, which means if you will be starting with global massive scale to implement this, is very easy. We are solve everything which we have a lot of trouble around this. And listen, this solution is extremely cheap. It's more than 10 times cheap, like official water in the industry present on the different auditorium, like for example, just now, I'm thinking just now very fast. And in next week is this big event of the water industry in I think in Jordan. Yeah. And when we develop this concept, it's very easy. We are starting after Velvet Revolution in Czechoslovakia, and my group starting to implement to harvest rainwater to ecosystem. Look how it's changed from dry lands, you can produce water. It's very easy. And after that, we implement another concrete solutions. And this is a concept which was developed on the government level, but only 1 year, because we are starting with Prime Minister to implement this when we have historical floods in Slovakia, but the new government totally stopped because it's what not interesting about that, because it is not concept for black economy. It's not on this concept is not possible to corrupt. Yeah, and how it's working, it's a couple of pictures about that, about how to harvest rainwater on the ecosystem, like different in forests, like this one. And this is job for people, for very poor people. And we wrote this experience on the book after us, Desert of the Deluge. And in this 1 year was implemented more than 100,000 of water retention measures in Slovakia, more than 10 million cubic meter of water holding, which means the system returned to small water cycle minimum 10 million cubic meter annually, but it's more than 10 million, and more than 8,000 people of working on this concept. And this is my group, and thank you, ďakujem veľmi pekne, thank you very much. And it's this group wrote this new water paradigm, and some people is Raphael Ziegler and Marco Schmidt. One is from Greifswald University from Germany, and second is from Technical University from Germany too. And with Jan Pokorny is from Czech Republic, and we are created with this Central European group, which starting to bring this new water culture, which can to help to trouble with water, climate system, and sustainability life. Thank you very much for your attention.